All right, welcome back for everyone that's tuning in uh, to the second conversation on the show that I haven't really came to grips with the title yet. I kind of like yesterday calling it "Things I Wish Dad Taught Me." I'm trying to make it quick, but and very concise. But I'm Zay, and just continuing our conversation about the impact of a father, whether they're in your life or absent, and just hopefully providing wisdom to our listeners, our supporters, that they can apply to their children, to loved ones who's fathering children, or even to their fathers. And today, I'm joined by old friend. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking part in this conversation. So
It's my pleasure. Thank you for
yes,
having me.
yes, absolutely. So, for those that don't know, this is Chalyn, Mrs. Toon, um, and she's a married mother of three. I started something a little different this week. I started a pre-recording questionnaire just so I can get more information. Even though I know these things, but I still want to treat it as if the audience is completely, ignorant to anything we're talking about. So just to
Yes.
have this conversation, invite you guys in. But she's a married mother of three. And one of the questions I asked was on a scale of 1 to 5, what level of involvement her father had in her life. One being deadbeat, and five being there every step of the way. She rated her father a 2. So again, those are just the way we start the conversation off. But the first question I have for you is, what made you interested in this conversation or taking part in this conversation?
With my dad personally, it's just been a journey. I've always known that he's loved me. I always known that he would be there for me. However, his absence in my life was not a result of him trying to keep us, his children, out of his life. It was more of to be spiteful to my mother
Mm,
and how to um and and it wasn't until I became an adult and a married woman when I actually sat down with my dad back in 2017 and we had this conversation.
mm.
So for years as an adolescent, I never knew this. I didn't know. I just thought he was just an absentee dad, and it wasn't until talking to him and realizing, so your absence really wasn't a result of not caring or wanting to be there for us. It was more because you were just angry at my mom and you thought you were going to get back at her by not being there for us.
It's interesting.
And
Interesting.
it literally was his ignorance in thinking, if I don't pay child support or I'm not there, it's really hurting their mother, not so much my children.
Yeah, and that's the short sightedness I think a lot of people have, especially when they let the emotions get the best of them. And
Correct.
now, just to start it off, because I want to always keep these conversations in chronological order, and break it down into 3 segments for the listeners to understand and be able to follow. The first part will pretty much start from our most formative years, and that's really I always. And this isn't scientifically proven, but I think my earliest memories go back to kindergarten, maybe preschool for some. If I didn't go to preschool, I was too advanced for preschool. No, I'm just kidding. But I went to the morning. I went to morning old school kindergarten, half day kindergarten. But that's my earliest memory. I don't remember anything prior to that. So I like to start with formative years being pretty much kindergarten, which is 4 or 5, up until I say 8 or 9 years old. And what starting with that in your life, what level of
So
involvement does your father have?
he really didn't, because my dad at that time was in the military. So he was always stationed overseas. So only times I remember being that young was when he would come into town for a couple of weeks or whatever and dropping us off at school.
Hmm,
And I remember crying because I didn't want him to go because he always wore his uniform and he was always getting ready to leave.
hmm, interesting. And were your parents ever married or living under the same roof growing up?
Yes, so my parents were married and they were legally separated by the time I was age 5 and divorced by age 12.
Okay, so legally separated. So pretty much your father and your mother never, well, as far as you can remember, do you have any memories of them being like together or in loving
No,
relationship?
No, I remember whenever he would come home, although they were legally separated, when he would come back to the States, he would obviously come to our house, but I don't ever recall them. Like, you know, it was a very short period of time that I did recall them. When we lived in Georgia, when we were stationed at that time, he was stationed in Georgia and we lived together. But it was only up until age 4.
Yeah, that's really young. You don't really understand anything at that time. You're
Mm-mm.
still trying to make
I do
sense of the
re
world.
I do recall him saving me from an ass whooping one time
Okay.
though. So I have always thanked him for that. But yeah, no.
That's the yin and yang right there, right?
Yeah,
Like
that
parents
was
is like,
it.
yeah.
That
Sometimes
was
when
the
parents
last.
do good cop, bad cop, he was playing
Yeah,
good cop. Like, whoa, 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 I'll deal with it.
yeah, that was the last ass whooping saving I ever had. But yeah,
So what do you? How would you describe like his presence during your formative years? And again, this is a large block of time. I would say from like kindergarten up to maybe like 10 years old. How would you describe his presence?
absent
Hmm.
here and like you know here and there. See him, don't see him. Um, and even got to the point where like I said, when my parents actually divorced, he would come to New Jersey because his mother lived here, but he wouldn't come across the street to see us. So my mom, we wouldn't know he was in town unless we drove past my grandmother's house, and then we would stop and say hi. So he was absent. That's it. He was just absent.
And how did that make you feel when you was younger? I know, like I had a pretty tumultuous relationship with my father, and sometimes like I just always wanted to look at the bright side of things because when you were a kid, like you trying to turn your father into a hero, so sometimes you can be naive to those realities. Was that something like you
That's
identify with?
it. You're naive to reality. You have this picture in your head, like what a dad's supposed to be, or you have friends that whose fathers are present, and it's like, Dad, I wish I had that. So you feel like you're missing something. Although your mom is doing all that she can only do so much.
And one of the things you took in the pre-survey, you mentioned providing. So, in what capacity did your father provide for you, from your understanding?
He didn't. So he didn't provide at all. So my mom provided, and I had no clue until one Christmas. I think I turned 14, that I realized he never purchased any of my gifts while my parents while we left Georgia. So I was 4 up until the age of 14. For 10 years, I had no clue he was not purchasing our Christmas gifts. She was sign our Christmas gifts from mommy and daddy, but I never knew he had nothing to do with our Christmas gifts.
Wow.
And it
So,
wasn't until I thanked him. You thank every year we thanked him for our gifts, but then I was like, how did you know I wanted that? And he had no clue what I was referring to. And then I just looked at my mom, and she had tears in her eyes. She just had to tell the truth. Like, no, I bought that. Like, I was very into science, and I really wanted this microscope, and she bought it for me, and all the things that went along with it. And she signed it mommy and daddy. So I'm just like, Daddy, how'd you know? And
wow. And when you found that out, like, did that kind of change your perception of your father, or you already had like an
absolutely.
inkling?
And no, it changed my perception of him. Like, all sense of that false reality that you had in your head of who your dad is to be, like this big hero, and he can't, although he's not doing what he's supposed to do, he's still not doing wrong in your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But that all changed. So from the time I was 14 until I went off to college my freshman year. So 18, I really had no like, it was very minimal conversation with my dad.
Mm.
Hi, bye. If he came into town, we would go over there to see him. But the only reason why we knew he was in town so when he left the military, he became a truck driver. So his truck would be outside of my grandmother's house.
Wow.
And we would drive past because you couldn't miss it. And then we would go over to see him, say hi. And my mom has never been one to be like, you can't have a conversation. You know, your dad's not doing this, so you don't do. She would always still swing us by there to see him, and
Mm.
but it was
It,
just never.
it just comes to mind when you say you found out on Christmas. It's like you finding out the reality of your father, but it's like finding out Santa Claus is fake.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. It was just like, oh, so Santa really don't exist.
Yeah,
Oh,
Santa doesn't exist, and that could be devastating. So like, how did this affect you emotionally, as far as like his
it's
absence?
it's crazy you say that because right now, as I'm thinking about, it, I'm getting emotional
Mm,
because everything, like, it just crumbled. Your whole my world was torn because I've always put my father on a pedestal, like you put people on pedestals, and I always put my father on a pedestal. I never thought I had daddy issues, but you realize as you become an adult and go through relationships that you got some issues that you don't understand why you're reacting the way you're acting.
mm,
Why, you have expectations of people when they fail you, you don't understand why you can't recover from it.
yeah.
So,
So not to bring up like your teenage years and talk about when the mask was off and Santa Claus was fake. Like, how did like, so the few times you do see your father every year, like, what was the interactions like? Did he, you know, try to compensate in any way for the
now
lost time, or did he act like nothing was wrong?
it was like, for him, I feel like, and the only reason why I say this now is because, like I said, in 2017, we were able to rip the band-aid off and have a serious adult to adult conversation. But I think for him, it's like, I don't want to address, it's easier not to address what's not being said. You're not going to bring it up. I'm not going to bring it up. So we could just go about our day as if it never existed. But
Yeah.
he never tried to overcompensate. Like, oh, let me take you out. Let me buy you guys this. Like, he was never that type. He just never did that.
Mm. And when you were young, what did you expect of your father? Did you have any expectations of him, like at all,
No,
from what you
not
saw on
really.
television or what you saw from other
You know,
things?
you see the Cosby Show and you're like, oh, that's
Mm,
cute. But it's like, outside of the Cosbys, that's really the only father figure. Like, although I know who my dad is and we knew who our dad was, it was just my friends didn't have dads. So it's not like
yeah.
I was missing
Mm,
anything directly. Like, in the community in which I lived in, there wasn't too many fathers.
mm,
However, the private school I went to, there was only moms. It was always moms and dads.
mm. Yeah.
So for the 8 hours, so the hour that you see them being everybody getting dropped off and picked up, that's all of the, like, that's who you would see. And then when you go to church, you would see the moms and dads together because we went to the church of the school, the private school. So it was just like, okay, we would see them there. But living in the community, there was no dad, so I didn't feel like I was really missing out. I was excited when my dad did come around because then I'd be like, here's my dad. But that was it. It was nothing.
Yeah. It's and that kind of reminds me of, I don't know if I coined this, but I always say that sometimes we in our community normalize dysfunction. Like,
Correct.
it's so ever present, right? That's all we know, that we don't realize that that's dysfunctional until we live a little bit, become more educated, read more, or experience things. And it's crazy because I felt the same way, right? Like, no one around us had that, right? Except for, but like you said, you went to a school and the faith community in itself. So seeing that, like, how did that? Because again, I want to go into the emotional regulations, like, did you ever feel some envy or jealousy from what you saw from your classmates and people that worship with you?
Absolutely. And I think with that, I've always, as a result of that, when dating, my issue, I've never been one to date for the sake of dating. I've always dated in this sense of, will you be my husband? Will we have children? And how will we raise our children? And as like, you should not be thinking that. You should just
Mm,
be dating and enjoying the person's company. And if y'all like minded, and if you're gonna vibe, those things. It should never be, okay, where can we go from here? Can I see myself, like I've always seen myself, can I date this person forever? Can I be
mm.
can this person end up being my husband?
Wow. So you had like a very mature approach to dating early on.
Correct. And it should never be. And I think that's an emotional thing, because on in one hand, you're too mature, and then in another hand, you're looking for a father figure, someone that's going to provide for you.
So how do you feel like your father, if he was there more, could have, changed that approach or that mentality you had from his absence?
You wouldn't be seeking for love. You wouldn't be seeking, not that you don't feel love. Obviously, you have friends, or your family and your mother, so you're loved, but you wouldn't be desiring love from an opposite sex.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
Not to be promiscuous, but just to be a sense of worth. I am worthy enough. I am enough. Like, it's just, I think, if for girls, it plays a major role when a father is absent. And I'm sure for males as well, it plays a major role when the father is absent in the home.
I'm glad you reached out and wanted to have this conversation because I feel like we don't really hear too many intimate details about the impact the father have on his daughter. Besides the stereotypical, or she a stripper, or what I
Mhm.
mean. I feel like it's cliche the things we do here, but you're talking about like the lack of relationship and how that translated to your approach to dating. And a lot of people say that a father usually is the first person the daughter dates in a model, in the way he presents the relationship. And how do you
Mhm.
feel about that whole idea?
I think that holds true. I do. I think there are certain things, like, it's funny you say that, because for a long time, my mother did not like my, at that time, boyfriend, now husband. She, every time she saw it, she said, he reminds me of your father.
Mm,
So, and I was scared, and I was like, what does that mean? But I love him. What do you see that is causing you to think of my dad? And it wasn't until I ran into a family friend who's known me since I was a little girl. Like, we grew, like, he was a little boy, I was a little girl, our families knew each other. So I had to tell him, and he was like, it may not be the bad side of your dad that your mother sees. Like,
mm,
he knew my dad, like, our parents went to high school together.
okay.
So he was like, it may not be the bad side that your mother sees. It could be the good side, but she doesn't know which side it is. So she just knows that he reminds her of him, and that's it.
Interesting, interesting. So the charming side, because I know sometimes people can look at things like, oh, that could be the devil right there. Like,
Yes.
what I mean? He could trick you into doing the wrong thing. Now, I'm glad you mentioned your husband. How long you been married?
We've been married. It'll be 11 years on the 28th.
It's a beautiful thing. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's black love right there. That's real relationship goals. And again, nobody has a perfect relationship, but we
Absolutely
tend
not.
to we tend to idolize strangers, and we have beautiful examples among us.
Yeah,
You
thank
know
you.
what I mean? We have beautiful examples among us. And I remember when you first started dating your husband too. We go back that
Yeah.
far. And that's dope to see that seed blossom into your beautiful family that you have. So that's dope.
Thank
Now,
you.
going on to the other aspect of our conversation, loving woman or man slash significant other. How could your father have helped in learning how to love your now husband, or any aspect, like what role could he have played, or what role his absence played in that?
His absence played, it was, like I said before, so dating, seeing this is my husband, but also saying, okay, he's also a provider. So many times, when I didn't have something or I needed something, My husband stepped up. At that time, he was just my boyfriend. So he stepped up for what I was missing. I will never forget one, it was college. I was in college. It was my senior year, last semester. My mother just lost her job. And, I still had three other siblings at home
Mm-hmm.
that she was providing for. And I was short on my tuition. I reached out to my dad. He couldn't do it. He said, let me see what I can do. Never came through. I reached out to my now husband, then boyfriend. He came through.
Mm-hmm.
So ever since then, it's always like I should not be looking at my boyfriend to be my provider.
Mm-hmm.
My father should have been my provider. And now that he's my husband, it's like he's still doing the same thing. And I wish I didn't have, like, I know my daughters will never have that feeling or that side of needing from any male, because he will always be there to provide for them. Even my son will never have that feeling of needing, because their dad will always be there, regardless if, and I pray this is never our situation, but if we're no longer together, I know I don't ever have to worry when it comes to our children, when it comes to him.
Now, all of these misfortunes with your father, did that other like what type of resentment, or if any resentment at all, did it lead to with you?
There was no resentment because my husband was there. I think there would have been resentment if I didn't have someone to lean on. So because he was always there, I didn't have resentment for him. I just needed understanding and clarity. And that's all I ever wanted. And I was able to get that when in 2017. I remember the date exactly, April 7th, 2017.
Wow. So you said understanding and clarity. Now, why was that satisfying enough for you rather than him just asking a mea culpa and just what I mean, a do over from here forward or apologies? Why did you just settle
Because
for
I
not even
needed,
settle, but that what is that?
yeah, because I wanted to understand what made you think that you can give birth to us, conceive us, and then not take care of us? What in your mind made you say they're okay? Their mother got it. Like, why? Like, what? So listening to him and having him explain, and that's one thing. Like, I'm sure we'll get down talk about it. That'll come up, but it's just like that's one thing I wish I had more of, is his level to accept his wrongdoings, like really sit in it. Like sometimes, you'll have a conversation with somebody and they'll, well, yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize. But to really sit down in his, hearing me go belt out all of my pain, all that I went through, the neglect of his absence, or the neglect of his presence, I should say, excuse me, and for him to acknowledge it, and then to, from that acknowledgement state, I never knew I was really hurting you or y'all. I thought I was really just hurting your mom. And it really only stemmed from my mother waking up one day saying enough is enough. She's tired of being disrespected, and she left him. And he told her that day when she left that she would never get another dime from him. And he meant that.
Hmm. So it's interesting we go here because the trope in our community is like, oh, as soon as the government got involved in our families, it got the father out of the house, it kept the father away from the family. And again, I know that sometimes that might apply, but it sounds like your situation that doesn't fit in that stereotypical excuse built in for our people.
No,
Like, so your father was just spiteful or vengeful.
because my mother said enough was enough. She was tired of being disrespected. She got up. She packed us up from Georgia. My brother at the time was only days old and drove us all the way from Georgia to New Jersey. And she told him, I am leaving you, and that's it. I've had enough. And he told her, you will never get another thing from me.
Wow. Wow. And so many different
Because
questions.
he was hurt. He was hurt that the love of his life, it was his. They were high school sweethearts. Said she wasn't going to deal with his BS anymore.
Wow. And he meant that. Wow.
And he
So
meant every word of that.
so growing up, did you ever have any other male figures that besides your eventual husband, like uncles,
You
cousins,
have
twins,
uncles, you
fathers?
have cousins, but that's all I saw them as, uncles and cousins. My mom, she'll tell you, if you speak to her now, she'll tell you she was married. She's been married to Jesus, so
Mm.
she's never remarried. Never, it was her
That's the
kids and
old
God.
school. That's the
Yeah,
old school woman right there. I mean, because we come from an era where women, whoever, when they left their husbands, they very particular about who they let around their kids.
correct.
It was
And my
almost like
mom
a
was
preservation of their chastity. Like, listen, I'm not violating these my image and my honor almost.
correct, and that's exactly how my mother was. She's not violating her image or her honor, and you're definitely not violating her children. So she had nobody around. Like they,
Now, did your mother ever try to force your father back into your lives, or like did her frustration ever bleed out into your upbringing?
no, because like I said before, my mom, she's always lived by the Bible. She always believed, although in her heart she may be hurt, she will never push that frustration out on us. She will always, it's better to forgive, for even if they may not forgive you, but it's better to forgive them for what they have done wrong to you.
Mm,
Because then if you don't, it will only eat and kill you.
that's the beauty of
And
faith. That's the
yeah,
beauty of faith. And
absolutely.
I it's in one, a song I remember hearing back when I was a kid comes to mind when you describe your mother, and it was called "Onward Christian Soldier." And it's just like you just marching on through all of these hardships, and that just shows the strength of your mother. Now, how is your relationship like with your father today?
It is so much better. So when we had that heart to heart in 2017, I told him then, I said, I'm not looking for a dad now. Like, I'm grown now. And I'm grown. I have a husband. So there's nothing you can do. I make my own money. Was like, it's not, there's nothing you can provide me, or, but you can be a friend. However, you have grandchildren. And I basically threatened him. And I said, if you ever make a promise to them and you do not keep your promise to them, you will reap my wrath.
Mm,
Because what you won't do is hurt my children. I said, I do believe you have the ability to become a great grandfather. And he has been a great, like, he calls on them all the time. When he comes into New Jersey, he reaches out. Hey, Sean, I'm about to swing by. Like, okay. Like he's really stepped up as, and it's crazy because as you see him, like you get teary because you're like, dang, like this is what it would have been like if you was in my
mm.
life all this time.
Yeah, that's deep, right? Um, Now, you said your father, you want him to be your friend. How did he feel when you put it to him like that? Like,
I
yo, you
think he
can't.
was hurt because he's always talked about, as a baby when I was born, whenever I moved, when your baby wakes up or moves, if they're not crying, you wake up when they cry. But my dad always said anytime I moved in my crib, he jumped up. So he's always had a strong connection with me. We've always had a strong bond. So I think he was a little hurt to hear that I don't need you as a dad. Like I need you, like be my friend. You can still teach me things. there's things I still haven't. I haven't. I'm clearly not the same age as you. Like there's things I can, can. I don't have to make every mistake as an adult.
That wisdom is
Yeah,
so
just
important. I
provide that
agree.
to me.
Hmm. That
Things
is.
in this new business venture I'm working on. Like he's able to answer a lot of questions for me. So it's like, yeah, we could be friends. I would still respect you as my father. I still call you daddy. I would never disrespect you and call you by your first name. But
Now, where did
I'm
he?
not looking to for that.
Now, where did he? Like, I feel like sometimes people have examples of how to be a father or what not to be as a father. How was your grandfather to him?
And it's funny because although my grandmother and grandfather were divorced, my grandfather was very much in his life. So I think like it wasn't a lack of not having a father that caused him not to be a good father. It was a result of him being resentful and being angry with my mother that caused the ripple effect. I'm going to hurt her so bad that we were the ones actually getting hurt. My mother had already forgiven you for the pain that you caused her, but you think you still adding pain to her when you're actually adding pain to us.
Did he have a like aha moment, like when he was articulating his rationale behind his absence, like when he
His
was
aha
owning
moment
this?
when I explained to him that we weren't you didn't do any, like there were times we didn't have anything, like you didn't help us at all. Mommy did absolutely everything. Absolutely, like working two jobs, like putting up with bullish from the one job. It's just, and one thing she never even, she could have gone after government assistance. And he mentioned that, he was like, well, I told her she should have did that, but why they would have went after you, like you're not paying child support now.
Wow. Hmm. So when he came to that grips, like did you notice any? Because he seemed like he was a prideful man. Did you notice that, like, showing any sign of hurt to his pride or ego? Like, damn, I really didn't provide.
Yeah, he was crying. He was crying, and I was crying, and I was, although I was having this conversation with my dad, like I said, my husband has always been there, and he was right there too. So what I couldn't, when I felt like I couldn't keep mentioning or discussing, or my husband was right there, keep going, like keep speaking what it is, so that y'all both can move past and grow, and that's exactly what we did.
Well, let's spend some time talking about your husband. You know, he's been solid since day one. That's a beautiful thing, man. Especially in our culture where solid men aren't highlighted enough. I feel like we point out the bad people among us rather than celebrate the solid ones. So, what type of man has your father been to you as a wife and as to his children?
So my husband has been, like I can't even put it in words how amazing he is. Not to say he's perfect, because God knows he's not, and I know I'm far from it as well. But it's just like when the definition of family is what he's all about. He will fight for his family, and it's just like it's amazing watching him. It's like like I'm in awe of him when it comes to our kids and our family. And then, on top of it, we have a child with special needs. So any parent with a special needs is all like, the relationship is just tethered anyway.
Yeah.
But when I say he is a fighter for his family, I mean that. Like whenever, if I'm like, it's never just one sided. It's not I'm going to discipline. It's we are disciplining. It's not, oh, our kids know they can't just go, well, let me go ask mommy because I know she'll do it, or let me go ask daddy. Nah, it's okay. You asked me, now let me go. It's always a conversation with us so that we know how to respond accordingly. Now, granted, we may not always agree on the outcome, but our kids don't witness the disagreement. Not to say that we don't have, because we're not a arguing couple anyway. Like we're just not.
That's
We shut down
personalities.
before
Yeah.
we don't argue, but they do hear conflict because I want kids to hear positive conflict. I want them to be able to not storm off or whatever, but anything we deal with that we may not always agree on, we discuss and we create a new solution based on whatever the outcome is.
So we mentioned the top three things: providing, emotional regulation, and loving of the significant other. How does he provide? The many ways he provides for you and for the children.
You know, he literally put like he puts us on his back. Like I can't even explain it. Like, you know, obviously financially, like that's just the basic, and you know, but like anytime he knows us, like he really, not that he studied, but he knows when we're hurt. He knows when something isn't right just by the tone of one's voice. He truly understands not only me but his children. He already knows. It's unreal. It is truly unreal. And you know, not only is he loving, he's caring. He's always there to support us. He just supports no matter what our interest is, or you know, he just supports, and it's a beautiful thing. It really
So
is.
he's providing financially support, emotional support, just all around, wrap
And
around loving and providing, as we said.
correct, and loving, either you know, being a disciplinarian, loving the right way, not he's not the, oh, go to your father, you know, he'll be the one to discipline. I'm gonna tell your dad if you don't, like, he's not that tight. You know, we discipline together.
Mm.
But it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I'm just really fortunate and blessed.
Mm.
And
You sound like,
even it's crazy.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I was going to harken back to, he sounded like the point guard who was busting Asbury ass back in the day.
Yeah, he was.
I remember him at the Jubilee, like just like providing for his teammates and providing
Yeah,
for the
you know.
fans, and like a silent assassin, very humbly, like.
Yeah, and he's very humble. He was not raised by his father, but he was fortunate enough to have excellent male role models in his life. You know, one of the basketball players, I'm sure the Hubbard,
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Hubbard, he an excellent role model in my husband's life. Even his best friend's dad, the Davis, like he's always had excellent male role models that he's would see and say, you know what, and on his own, because you don't have a dad to tell you what you can and cannot do, but he's always had excellent male role models in his life that has helped him into the man he is today, and I'm truly thankful and blessed for it.
That's that village. That village is so
Yep.
important. Now,
Seriously.
in regards to emotional regulation, I think that ties into different ways. Like, how did he help regulate the emotions of your children, and also maybe subsidize the emotional deficiencies you might have, or support you emotionally?
Support me emotionally by understanding that it's okay. He was the one to encourage therapy. Within the Black community, it's a faux pas. Like, you don't go to therapy. Ain't nothing wrong with you. But
Yeah.
because this way I don't bring it home. My whatever pain I have is from my childhood should not. It's not fair to him to bear that burden too, and to support that, to say it's okay to seek help, like it's okay to get help, even for himself. Like it's okay for us to do that. It's okay. We may not have it all together now, but we will. Like to understand and sit down and talk to me. Think, what's our plan? What is our plan? This is, and for him, everything about him is family. Anytime you want to do things, to understand someone's love language, to understand my husband's love language is you have to incorporate our family. Whereas my love language is I need a break. Take me on a nice dinner, take me to a nice hotel. His love language is our family, to incorporate our children, because his kids are everything to him. His family is everything to him.
Now, what about I'm just gonna get toward to the end part.
Mm-hmm.
As far as loving a man, like what is the how have you learned from your father's absence and by your husband's presence on how to love your significant other? Like, I think sometimes people get so comfortable in relationships that they forget to do the things that made them fall in love, or they get caught up in parenting. And I
Correct.
think that can come from your parent, that wisdom by your parents being affectionate, you seeing that or seeing them be affected to their husband or wife. To me, those things are important examples. So whether it's example through actions or through words, like what impact your husband and your father's absence had on that?
My father's absence just let me, I need to know, or wanted to know, what is it that he needs in order for me to love him. Sometimes I think, not to say that my mom was wrong or anything like that, but sometimes when someone in the relationship isn't doing what they're supposed to, or they're doing disrespecting you, it's sometimes a result of what are they not getting from you. Um, and sometimes we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and be like, what am I doing that would cause you to treat me this way? Or maybe it's not me directly, maybe you have issues in your past that's causing you to treat me this way. But I think for me, my thing is I needed to know understand my husband. And although yes, we have been together since our teenage years, it's just being his girlfriend and being his wife are two separate things. Being his girlfriend, I can walk out anytime I want to. Being his wife, I cannot. We have to address things together. I need to understand you and understand what's gonna keep you loving me every single day, and what's gonna have you love me every single day. So it's truly understanding each other. And like I said before, my husband's love language is our family. And the fact that my husband and I are friends, we always go back to our friendship. We laugh and joke about the goofiest stuff. And I haven't done I haven't posted it, but like every once in a while you'll see me do 30 days of just loving him. Like 30 days of just every single day I'm doing something different to love on him. Like he likes simple stuff. Like my husband's not, he's a simple man. Like breakfast in bed, simple, loving, cool things. Outside of a water gun fight, like with the family. Like he likes stuff like that.
That's dope.
So
It sounds like a man that's honored his vows. Also understands that marriage is a journey, right?
correct.
Like,
This is
and it's
definitely
a
not a
journey.
sprint. It's
Yeah, it's a journey. And with all things, it needs to be like maintenance needs to be uh, applied. And I think that's a beautiful thing. It sounds like he's a very mature man in himself. Also, all those things bring to him being mature, and he's not taking his lack of a father. Neither have you. and use it as an excuse to have like to be a shitty person, right? Because
Correct.
I have a philosophy. I feel like people either take their misfortunes and turn it into motivation or an excuse. You know what I mean? And I think that's up to us when we mature. But
And I
appreciate it.
true. And I think also when you know what real love is and you feel that, there's no reason to be an asshole or to act shitty towards somebody else because you understand and you receiving real love. So it's like when you get it, you don't want to lose that.
All right. Now, I'm going to conclude with the last two questions. And the first question is, what was the best thing you learned from your father, and by his example or by his absence? Either way, you want to answer that.
How to love. By his absence, I learned how to love and how to love right. Like understanding someone's love language, understanding that person, getting to know that person.
Hmm.
So,
And
yeah.
what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you
No, go
was.
ahead. No.
And the last one is, what do you wish your dad was able to teach you? Like, what is something you wish he would have taught you? And I'll give you
How,
an example again for me. Like, something I wish I had been taught tools and handyman work. Like, I feel inadequate whenever I go to Home Depot or Lowe's. Like, I just feel like that is the manliest store, and I just feel like I don't belong there sometimes. So it could be as simple as that, or something deeper. And what is for you?
um, maybe I wish he would have walked me down the aisle. I never, not that I had a wedding because we went to the Justice of the Peace. We were planning a wedding, but I wish he would have walked me down the aisle. I wish I would have had that father daughter dance.
That's a very powerful way to end. And I do appreciate you being vulnerable and opening up to have this
Yeah.
conversation. And I want to make sure I emphasize to the listener, this isn't bashing. This is honestly us just using real stories so people can find gems in there and take this wisdom that we're sharing to and be able to apply it, right? So we went through these things, so hopefully you wouldn't have to go through these things. And that's like
Yes.
a paraphrasing of a Jay-Z line. I always do that. But on the out, anything you want to plug? Any uh, foundations, organizations, social
No,
medias, anything like
no,
that?
none of that. None of that. I just, I thank you. Um, and I appreciate everything that you're doing, Isaiah. Like I've watched you with your daughter, and it's like, I mean it. Like you watching you guys as dads, our friends growing up, be seeing them become
Yes.
fathers. It's just like it's an amazing thing because we didn't have, but you guys never allowed that to be your lack. So it's amazing watching you guys.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, guys, everyone listening, make sure you subscribe. I guess I'm gonna say the cliche stuff. Subscribe, share, comment, get the algorithm going, and the production value of the show will increase as we tweak things. And follow me on Zay Every Day, soon to be a separate social media account for this YouTube. But we'll see. And hope you guys tune in again. All
Thank
right,
you.
no problem.